Hi, I'm Medea. I run a nonprofit called Cities for Children. And this is a question you might not have the answer for right now, but I'm also just wondering and interested in, whether there's any element of politicization that sort of comes into the algorithms when there's storytelling or when there's sort of input that's being given to kids. What is there a lens there, or could there be a lens there? I don't know how this world works, but I do know it's fed by information that's gathered. And so where is that data coming from, and how does it work when it filters down to kids?
That might be for you. Yeah. Do we have a microphone that we can bring up to the front?
Oh,
Uh, yes, so because all of these, I mean, it will depend on the toy and what sort of data they've been using to create their database for generating things or their model. But it will, from at least our research, because I have a research team specifically on bias and fairness, on various aspects, including, for instance, predicting depression in adults or children. And there's always gender related biases. And obviously, also, if it's facial or body related things, there are always biases related to cultural aspects or ethnicity and so on. So I would naturally expect these to be also biased. Also, because, for instance, it is very well known that most of the stories or even cartoons, even the latest ones that children are watching, are still biased in terms of majority of superheroes being male. I mean, I'm watching with my son, and even though there's more awareness now, still maybe there'll be one girl, but two spider boys, right? Or one girl and three or five other male sort of characters in Ninjago, for instance. So therefore, I would expect also the storybooks, majority of the heroes are male. So if they're using any of these, and that's where they will get their data from, naturally the models will be biased in terms of, for instance, if it's a story creation, it's very likely that the heroes, the majority of these very strong characters, will be boys or male, just to give an example.
Hi, thank you. I'm Catherine. I'm from Blackpool, and I'm an EdD candidate at the University of Sheffield. But for my day job, I lead speech, language, and communication work with children under 5, and I'm interested in some work around using Gabo to support children who don't want to speak to human beings as their primary need. But I'm a bit anxious about those conversations, getting a scent for that. And also from an ethical perspective, I think the conversations all go up onto a cloud somewhere. And I just wondered if you'd had any experience of keeping children's assent safe with the research that you've come across.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that a little bit. We've had quite long kind of discussions about the ethics of especially the data sharing, and because we decided to use a toy that's on the market rather than something that we built ourselves. Our own conclusion on this, which I think was kind of important, is because these devices are in the home, because children are sharing their data with them at home, we kind of took the perspective of it's important for us to know their impact, and therefore, as long as they're informed in the research of the fact that their data is being shared with the company, that was kind of the ethical thing for us to do. We developed a kind of picture book to read with children so that they could understand that their data was being sent to the toy company. We also developed an easy to read privacy notice for the parents to make sure that they were aware of what was happening. And when selecting a toy, we made sure that we selected one that I guess had at least the best privacy practices that we could find. And that's not to say, I mean, I'm not advocating for, that they have brilliant privacy practices, but we liked, I guess, the kind of deletion policies, and that was fairly easy. We liked that they weren't storing audio files, they were only storing transcripts, and that those were deleted after a certain amount of time. We liked that they weren't using the data to train their model, so it's kind of sent off to them for unknown purposes that they don't specify, which I don't love, but that they had kind of said that they're not using it to train their model. So we kind of, I guess the limited use of data was something that was important. But I do think it's a big question in this. Yes, please do.
Well, just to say that I think that you know, child data protection is a massive under-regulated issue, and the regulations are way behind what's actually happening. You know, like the marketization is leading, the regulation is still being developed, really. So Professor Sonia Livingston is leading on this on a global level. She's based at the London School of Economics, but they tend to see like teenagers as the highest risk and then reduce risk as you go down. But the evidence that we have is that there is a lot of data for very young children that is going somewhere, and the parents aren't even necessarily aware of that. It's just a device that's really handy, if you see what I mean, for whatever. And it's not that parents don't care, they care very much, but this is an underregulated field and it needs very serious consideration from birth. You know, you can't, I don't think it's right to say, oh, people are more at risk when they're teenagers. Everybody that has data recorded about them is at risk of something. You know, it just goes without saying. So it needs swift action and very well informed action. Yeah.
I just want to add one thing. So actually, it's possible for the toys to have offline models, so they don't need to be online and sending everything to the cloud. And that's where policies can help. For instance, to make them age appropriate if they're for certain age groups, and they can't really consent themselves. So there should be, you know, like regulations to ensure they're offline models and not online and directly sending to the cloud. The problem is even lay people do not know how much of their data is being gathered and what it means. So they can't really regulate for their kids because they're not aware of their own data and how it's being used. Yeah.
Thank you to both of you for speaking today. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time for questions, but we do have a refreshment break. So we'll be around and can answer questions. I think the refreshments are going to be set up like they were this morning on the two sides of the room. No one's correcting me, so I think that's the case. So yeah, catch us, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.